I'm Nick Ellinger with more, and wanted to talk a little bit about two studies about online donations today, looking at it in very different lenses. So the first one is about statistical significance. And when I first saw this question, I said, okay, if something's statistically significant at the 5% level, it should be a 95% chance that it's a real discovery. So a 5% chance or less that it's a false discovery. I mean, that's what statistically significance means. But there's a recent study that just came out that looked at Optimizely and A/B tests that are done there for donation forms. And the results was between 18 and 25% of tests that were done that were significant at that level were actually false positives, were false results, which is interesting to see. And it's not because we don't have enough people going in. The researchers found it's because more than 70% of what we're putting into A/B testing online are true null effects. They don't have any effect. And so why would this be a big challenge? And this is what the researchers say. And I got a headache just looking at it. So the reason that they go into has to do with Bayes' theorem from Thomas Bayes, who was an English statistician, philosopher, and Presbyterian minister back when you would do all of those things simultaneously. And the Bayes' theorem is all about conditional probability, not just what are the odds that this will happen, but given this world, what are the odds that this would happen? And Bayes' theorem says basically you have priors going in, a belief that you have this new piece of evidence, and there's somewhere in between there, and there's a big long equation for how you calculate it, somewhere in between there is what your new assumption of reality should be. And so I use the example of what are the chances there are dragons in the world. Personally, I view it, let's say there's a 0.01% chance that there are dragons in the world. Now let's also say that a peer-reviewed study comes out and says that statistically significant at the 5% level, there are dragons in the world right now. Okay, that's interesting evidence. That's new evidence, in fact. And so I'm going to have to update my priors. I'm going to have to say my 0.01% chance that there are dragons in the world needs to be updated. But I'm not going to update it all the way to 95% chance that there are dragons in the world. My priors, my knowledge going in, the fact that I've never seen a dragon, everyone carries a camera with them at all times. I've never seen pictures of a dragon. That holds some weight too. And so somewhere in the middle is my new belief. And so the A/B testing is doing a similar sort of thing. If you put 70% false, 70% true nulls into an Optimizely engine, it's going to, some of those are going to come out as statistically significant just because of randomness. And if you have a high N going in, that means you're still going to get a significant percentage of those tests coming out with updated priors. And so there's a remarkable diagram in the paper that comes out that looks at z-scores, and z-scores are a way of quantifying standard deviations. So more or less 1.96 standard deviations from normal is 95% confidence. So most 95% of the time, things will fall into within 2 standard deviations. 1 standard deviation, 68%, 3 standard deviations, 99 point something percent. Optimizely, in some cases, we're reporting z-scores of negative 20 standard deviations. I looked for a calculator that would tell me how absurd this would have to look. And the calculators don't actually go out that far. So I did some of the math, and my best estimate is if I fired a gun at you from across the room, the odds of a negative 20% 20 z-score, 20 standard deviations out, is if like lightning hit the bullet as it was flying through and deflected it, or you found the one blue grain of sand on a beach. Those shouldn't happen. Nothing is that certain in this world, quite frankly. Even the non-existence of dragons is not 220 standard deviations out. So to say this level of confidence comes from you put things into an A/B testing environment online, and often you say, let it run until it comes back with a statistically significant result. Well, if you're doing that with something that's 70% true nulls, you're going to get a bunch of false positives. And so how do we improve the test? They say it's not a matter of having more people do the forms, although that reduces it somewhat. The key is to lower the true null rate. And so what they recommend are two-step tests. So first, before you do your A/B test, you do a test of a bunch of different options. And from that, you say, these are the top 2 or 3 options that have come out of it. And then you run your A/B test. That's a fight to the death between or among those options. That gives you a lower true null rate because you've qualified the tests that are coming into your test. They are already pretty likely not to be a false positive. Failing that, let's say you don't want to do a 2-stage test. They don't say this is my op-ed coming into this study. If you have a solid reason for your hypothesis, you saw it in a research study, you've tested this at another organization, you saw ANA or Bridge presentation about it, and another organization's done it well, you read a behavioral science book and there's this principle that goes into it, and you think this principle may apply. Any sort of solid reason for your hypothesis that's more than just, I want to try a green button today because I've always done a red button, will help you winnow out those types of tests. So just a warning and a reminder to occasionally retest to find to see if some of the assumptions that you have coming in aren't perhaps the ones that you should. So open to any questions on that. Shout them out or put them in the chat, or you can have them in the Q&A. And I should mention at this point, well, hopefully questions are percolating. We're always looking for new tests to be able to share with this audience. If you have tests that you would like to share, we would love to have them. In fact, the way it's looking, it looks like we'll have tests from an organization in February, 4 different online tests with statistically significant results that jive with behavioral science principles. So it should be a really good session. So feel free to ask those questions. I'll go on to the next test, which is less about testing, kind of meta testing, but how do you get more online donations? And so this is from a recent study looking at indirect marketing. All of these things have some challenges because there's not a quantifiability. If you do a really solid press conference and you get a lot of press coverage, it's more difficult to draw a line between that and the donations that come in. Sometimes if you're asking for feedback, it becomes clear. I remember doing work with a relief organization that was mentioned as doing good work by Nicholas Kristof in the New York Times. And they had over 100 people, right, say not only that they made the donation, but afterwards they said, I did this because of the Kristof article. So sometimes, some very rare times, you can draw that line. But things like PSAs and earned media and organic social and the general buzz that you have in the community and the branding by doing, I'm active in my community and therefore I'm seen and therefore people see, how much does that impact fundraising? And does it impact fundraising? So a bit of a spoiler alert as to whether it does impact things. You can watch TNPA's new PSAs on the homepage, and we have all versions at psadirect.com/client/TNPA. So you can kind of guess where we're going here. We're going to talk about how earned media can be a positive thing, and that also then makes it a little bit more worth investing in. It's not as direct as a mail piece or an email, those sorts of things, but it does have this beneficial effect. What the researchers did is they grouped charities by mission statements in the UK. They did it in super broad categories. So my guess is that the results you're going to see are going to get even better when you get even more specific. And then they looked at Google Trends as an indicator of how much this issue is being discussed. So they took words from the mission statements and said, how often are these searched in Google Trends? And for those of you who use Google Trends, you know they don't give you a raw, how much is this searched, but they give you a fluctuation over time. 100 is the most, and compared to that base rate, how much are people searching for it right now? The outputs they looked at was UK text giving, essentially, over a 7-year period. And so 44,000 text donations over 500 charities. Some interesting things just in the descriptive statistics. People in the UK are giving a larger average gift on the weekdays rather than the weekends. Older people, not surprisingly, are giving larger average gifts than younger people, more disposable income. And mornings tend to be preferred average gift-wise over evenings, although the number of donations higher in the evenings. So just some interesting local color there. The results were when you had a 1 standard deviation increase in your searching for your top 10 keywords, you had an overall more than doubling of donations. And if you could increase that top keyword for your organization, it was even more than that. And some of the keywords in between also had an increase effect. So if you're getting people to search for your issue, your donations will correspondingly increase, although not necessarily as a direct result of the searching. Yes, we do search ads. Yes, we're trying to bring people in through that funnel. But this study is only correlative. It can't say this directly causes that. And in fact, they're coming in with the hypothesis, and I'd mostly agree, that this isn't direct. It's that overall awareness increases. That leads to people searching more, and that leads to more donations. And there may be a connection between those two things, but not necessarily. So those awareness activities that you're doing, things like PSAs, like earned media, working to get your name out in the community, whether it's direct marketing or not, still has an impact. So a couple of other interesting notes. Younger donors and weekday donors are more sensitive to salience than older donors or weekend donors. I don't have a ready explanation for weekday versus weekend, but it makes sense that a younger donor who's still figuring out where they want to have their philanthropic life would be more sensitive to what's in the news now than someone who is older and perhaps more set with the charities to which they give. And there's this explore, exploit part of life. You will tend to listen to the songs you listened to when you were younger because you like them, they were repeated, and we may not be in the mood to discover new music right now. Same thing for charities. So any questions on any of this? Incidentally, one of the most predictive ones that I've seen in that similar sort of line is that people say who research candy bars, Hershey's and scientists, marketing scientists, will say you generally eat the same candy bar you ate when you were 8. If you've made it till 9 and you're still trying to affect candy preferences, you are too late to the party. Now, obviously, that's an exaggeration. Obviously, that's an average. You can still impact some candy sales by then, but that people are generally hooked on candy bars at 8. Charities, probably a little later in life. In fact, there's also good research that shows that life cycle events are substantially predictive of where people will give. For example, when people don't have kids, they're more likely to give to animal charities. When they have children, their giving will generally shift toward giving toward educational efforts and other sort of parenting-related charities. And I think I've vamped long enough. We don't have any questions or Q&A in the chat. So just another reminder that we would love to have people present. These research studies are great, but it's nothing compared with, I did this in the field, it works, and I recommend that other charities do it as well. That's hopefully the community that we're building here with TNPA. So thank you very much for your time today. If you have any questions on this or anything else that I've shared, I'm at N Ellinger. You can ignore the Shannon McCracken. I just use her login to get in here. So it's N Ellinger. That's NELLINGER at wearemore.com. The more has 2 O's. So looking forward to hearing from you. Hopefully this has been helpful to you, and we'll post it on the website as well. Thank you much for your time.